Welcome back to the deep dive. We're exploring something, well, pretty universal today. The desire to live longer and, just as importantly, live better. But the big question is, how do you actually know if all the things you're doing, the diets, the exercise routines, the supplements, are actually making a difference? How do we measure aging?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? Just like, say, you measure blood pressure for hypertension or cholesterol for heart disease risk, we absolutely need objective ways to track how we're aging. Without that kind of data, we're honestly just guessing.
Flying blind a bit.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to look at seven really crucial metrics. These can give you a much clearer picture of how quickly you might be aging biologically, and importantly, whether your efforts are actually moving the needle. Think of them as like your body's hidden dashboard indicators.
Okay, let's unpack this. First up is one that might genuinely surprise you: your white blood cell count. Now, I think most of us assume, right, that more white blood cells, they're the body's guards. After all, must mean a stronger immune system. Simple as that. But is it?
Well, it's often not quite that simple, and that's where it gets interesting for longevity. Research actually shows that in generally healthy people, white blood cell counts closer to the lower end of the normal range. Those are linked with greater life expectancy.
Lower end. Okay, why? That seems counterintuitive.
It does initially, but the reason is, well, even within what doctors call the normal limits, a higher count can signal that your body is in a state of elevated inflammatory and immunological activity, kind of a low-level constant simmer.
Aye.
And this constant internal activity, this immunological buzz, leads to more daily wear and tear on your cells. Over time, that can actually accelerate aging and potentially shorten lifespan. So it's less about the number of immune cells and more about the underlying inflammatory background they might represent.
Right.
And things like, say, having enough vitamin D or magnesium, those often matter more for effective immune function than just having a high quantity of white blood cells.
Okay, so if a slightly lower count is better for longevity, what can you actually do about it? What are the practical steps?
Yeah, the main takeaway here is to focus on reducing systemic inflammation throughout your body. So that means things like adopting a more anti-inflammatory diet, maybe considering supplements like omega-3s, and also actively managing stress. Techniques like specific breathing exercises, the Wim Hof method is one example people talk about. They can be surprisingly effective.
And the upside is these things help overall health anyway, right?
Absolutely. The great thing is these practices don't just aim to influence your white blood cell profile, they calm chronic inflammation everywhere, which boosts your daily health and just how you feel day to day.
Okay, so from the body's internal defenders,
Yeah.
let's shift to the engine itself, the heart, specifically your resting heart rate. This is something so many people track now, with smartwatches, fitness bands.
For sure, it's very accessible data these days, and it holds powerful clues. When we talk about resting heart rate or RHR and exercise, it's important to grasp this idea of the law of diminished returns. So consistent, moderate physical activity, incredibly good for your heart, no question. But perhaps surprisingly, pushing into extreme efforts, like, say, running many, many kilometers every single day, that often gives you very little extra benefit for longevity compared to just being consistently moderately active, like intense walking.
So more isn't always better.
Exactly. Beyond a certain threshold, the benefits can kind of plateau, or in some instances could even become slightly negative due to the sheer stress on the system. Now, we should probably clarify, brief, very intense bursts of exercise like HIIT, that's a different category, often quite beneficial. We're talking more about extreme endurance here.
That law of diminished returns is really interesting. It makes you think about training smart, not just hard.
It does. It's more about sustainability and avoiding that chronic overstress. And if you link RHR back to the big picture, well, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 killer globally. So check this out. There's a compelling statistic that shows having a resting heart rate around 50 beats per minute can cut your cardiovascular risk down to 1/3 compared to someone sitting at 90 BPM.
Ow, 1/3.
Yeah. And it's about half the risk compared to someone at 80 BPM. So a lower resting heart rate really is a strong predictor of a longer life expectancy.
That is a massive difference. And it's something you can see change on your wrist every day. So what's the advice for improving it?
Well, first off, just monitor it regularly. Use those devices you probably already have. Then for actually lowering it, think about weaving moderate activity throughout your whole day. Mimic those habits you see in blue zones, those long-lived populations, less sedentary time overall.
Right, just moving more often.
Precisely. Or if that daily integration is tough with your schedule, even short bursts of high-intensity interval training can be remarkably effective at nudging that resting heart rate down.
Definitely makes you reconsider sitting for hours on end.
It should.
Okay, next up. If heart rate tells us about current vitality, let's go deeper, right down to our DNA, and talk about telomeres. We hear about these as the protective caps on our chromosomes, getting shorter as we age. But what's actually happening, and why is it so critical?
Okay, think of telomeres like, you know the little plastic tips on the ends of your shoelaces? Aglets.
Yeah.
Telomeres are kind of like that for your DNA. Every single time one of your cells divides and replicates its DNA, a tiny piece of that protective telomere cap gets worn off. It happens because the enzyme that copies the DNA polymerase, needs sort of anchor point to start, and that process essentially nibbles away a little bit of the end.
Ah, okay, so it's just natural wear and tear from cell division.
Exactly. And shorter telomeres basically mean your biological clock is ticking faster. It's an indicator that biologically speaking you are older, and when those telomeres get critically short or erode completely, the consequences are pretty serious. Your DNA itself becomes unstable, vulnerable to damage, alterations, mutations.
That sounds bad.
It is. It also leads to the creation of what we call senescent cells. Sometimes people call them zombie cells.
B cells, okay.
Yeah, because they stop dividing and functioning properly, but they don't die. They just hang around, secreting inflammatory stuff and basically gumming up the works in your tissues and organs. In really extreme cases of telomere loss, you can even lose whole chunks of chromosomes. It's quite fundamental. Some fascinating studies in mice showed they could significantly extend lifespan just by clearing out these senescent cells.
Wow. So how do they actually measure telomere length in us?
Typically, it's done from a simple blood sample. They usually look at the telomeres in your white blood cells and calculate an average length. There are different lab techniques. The Feshish technique, that stands for fluorescence in situ hybridization, is often considered the gold standard for precision. But honestly, any decent telomere length measurement can give you valuable insight into your biological age compared to your actual chronological age.
This is where it gets really hopeful, though. If shorter telomeres mean faster aging, can we do anything to slow that down or even reverse it?
Yeah, this is where the research gets incredibly exciting. There's growing evidence that various practices can indeed slow down the rate of telomere shortening. And what's even more amazing is that some studies suggest certain interventions might even help lengthen telomeres, which hints at a possible biological age reversal, at least by this metric.
Lengthen them, like what kind of things?
We're talking about practices like certain types of intermittent fasting, techniques aimed at stimulating stem cell activity, those Wim Hof-style breathing methods again, and even things like sessions in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber have shown promise in some studies. It's quite remarkable to think you can see these changes. We've seen research where people adopt these kinds of lifestyles, and their measured biological age, based on telomeres, actually comes out younger than their birth age.
That's a powerful feedback loop, seeing that your efforts are literally turning back the clock, biologically speaking.
Absolutely. It's a direct window. And while telomere testing is a great tool we have now, looking ahead, things like epigenetic markers, chemical tags on our DNA will likely give us even more detailed ways to track biological aging. Epigenetics is a bit more complex to measure routinely right now, but it's a super exciting area for understanding how our lifestyle impacts our genes and aging.
Okay, let's move to our fourth metric. This one feels almost deceptively simple. Grip strength. Seriously, your handshake.
Believe it or not, yes. It's a surprisingly potent predictor, kind of hiding in plain sight right there in your hand. Get this. Research indicates that your grip strength is actually a better predictor of your risk of dying from any all-cause mortality in adults than even your systolic blood pressure.
Better than blood pressure. Wow.
Yeah. And it's also a significant risk marker for developing diabetes, which isn't immediately obvious, perhaps. There was a study in South Korea that really highlighted it as a great way to assess premature aging, and this held true regardless of someone's age or socioeconomic background.
So what kind of numbers should people be aiming for?
Well, for what researchers consider good aging, the minimum target is usually around 16 kilograms of force for women and 32 kilograms for men, measured using a device called a dynamometer. But honestly, for really robust health and resilience as you age, I'd strongly suggest aiming for double those numbers if you can.
Double. Okay. And what influences grip strength?
It really depends heavily on consistent strength training throughout your life. It's not something you can just build up quickly in old age. And it's also linked quite closely to your levels of sex hormones, particularly testosterone.
Right. So the actionable advice here seems pretty straightforward then.
It really is. Quite simply, lift heavy things.
Ah, yeah.
Consistent progressive resistance training. That's the most direct route to building and, crucially, maintaining the strength that this metric reflects. It doesn't need to be fancy, just challenging.
Okay, building directly on that idea of grip strength, let's broaden the lens to overall muscle health. We're talking both the amount of muscle you have, the quantity, and its quality. Clearly, this isn't just about looking good.
Not at all. Muscles are absolutely fundamental to your body's resilience, its ability to recover from setbacks. Think about injuries, falls, even severe burns. Your muscles produce vital proteins and metabolites that are essential for healing and bouncing back. There's even a fascinating protein called klotho, named after one of the Greek faiths, the one who spun the thread of life.
Klutha, okay.
Maintaining good muscle mass helps your body produce klotho, and higher levels are linked to increased life expectancy. But here's the key nuance. It's not just about having huge muscles, like bodybuilder levels of hypertrophy. It's more about having proportional strength relative to the amount of muscle you have. So functional strength is key.
Functional strength.
Right. It's about having strong, capable muscle in a body that also maintains a reasonably low body fat percentage. Because excessive non-functional muscle bulk can actually be a drain on your body's resources.
Okay, so how do you measure this muscle quantity and quality aspect?
A good way is using the fat-free mass index, or FFMI. You calculate it by taking your lean mass, that's your total weight minus fat mass in kilograms, and dividing it by your height in meters squared.
Like BMI, but for lean mass.
Exactly. The average FFMI is around 15 for women and about 19 for men. For better longevity outcomes, you definitely want to aim significantly higher than those averages. And beyond FFMI, there are also non-invasive devices now that can directly measure muscle strength, often at the points where muscles attach to bones.
So this really reframes building muscle. It's not just vanity, it's building your body's resilience fund, essentially. How do you build that fund?
Well, it comes right back to what we just discussed with grip strength. Consistent progressive resistance training is absolutely central. Make sure you're working all the major muscle groups. Focus on getting stronger in functional movements, not just pumping up muscle size. And of course, ensuring you get enough protein in your diet is crucial to support that muscle growth and repair.
Makes sense. Okay, metric number 6. This one is super accessible, something you do every day. Walking speed. You mentioned it's especially relevant for older folks, but it sounds like it has insights for all of us. Maybe power walking through the airport isn't just about catching the flight.
Huh. Maybe not. It's actually a surprisingly informative metric. There was a large study back in 2013 looked at tens of thousands of people, and it found that, generally, people who walk faster tend to show signs of aging more slowly. Even more strikingly, if someone experiences a sudden, unexplained decrease in their usual walking speed, that's a pretty strong predictor of premature death.
Wow. Why? What's the connection between walking speed and aging?
The why is really interesting. A faster walking speed generally indicates a higher metabolic rate. Your body is producing and using energy more efficiently. And this is directly linked to how well your mitochondria are functioning. Those are the little power plants inside your cells. Better mitochondrial activity means more energy, which often translates to a brisker natural pace.
So if you feel like your pace is lagging, can you actively work on increasing it?
Oh, absolutely. You can train your walking speed. And interestingly, that same research suggested that focusing on taking more steps per minute, increasing your cadence, is generally more effective and carries less risk of injury than trying to take unnaturally long strides.
More steps, not longer steps. Got it.
Right. Also, incorporating those high-intensity interval exercises we talked about earlier, that can boost your overall metabolic rate, which often leads to an increase in your comfortable walking speed as a side effect. Or, you can simply make a conscious effort to walk a bit faster during your daily walks. That alone can help stimulate your mitochondria.
And the flip side is clear, right? Being sedentary will slow you down.
Definitely. A sedentary lifestyle will almost inevitably lead to a decrease in your normal walking speed over time. So staying active is key here too.
Okay, finally, number 7. Let's talk about something we all see in the mirror. Facial appearance. We notice wrinkles, gray hair, skin changes, and yeah, we associate that with getting older. But you're saying there's a deeper biological story here.
Indeed, there is. It might sound surprising, but how old your face looks can actually be a better predictor of your overall biological aging than your chronological age, or even how well you perform on cognitive tests.
Better than cognitive tests. How?
The underlying reason is quite profound, actually. Many of those visible signs we associate with aging on the face, the wrinkles, the hair graying, changes in skin texture and elasticity, these are often the outward manifestations of underlying oxidative stress. And that same oxidative stress that's causing visible changes on the outside is very likely aging cells throughout your entire body simultaneously.
Ah, so the face is like a window to the internal cellular environment.
In many ways, yes, but here's a really crucial distinction to make. Cosmetic treatments, creams, injections, procedures, they might make you look younger temporarily by addressing the surface appearance. But they don't necessarily change that fundamental level of cellular oxidative stress happening inside.
Right, they treat the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly. For true longevity benefits reflected in your appearance, the focus needs to be on holistic approaches, things that actually tackle the root cause of that oxidative stress throughout your body.
Which brings us full circle, really. Focusing on those broader health practices reduces oxidative stress, and that benefits everything, including how young you look. Genuinely.
Hmm.
So what's the core advice for impacting facial appearance from a longevity standpoint?
It really comes down to reducing that internal oxidative burden. So we're talking about things like a diet packed with antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, minimizing exposure to environmental toxins, managing stress selectively. Getting enough quality sleep is huge too. Essentially, all the fundamental holistic health practices that benefit those internal metrics we've discussed, your WBCs, your RHR, your telomeres, they will also naturally manifest as a healthier, more genuinely youthful appearance over time because they're working from the inside out.
So bringing it all together, we've covered these 7 incredible measurements from deep inside, like white blood cells and telomeres, to everyday things like grip strength and walking speed, and even the story your face tells. What's the big takeaway for someone listening?
The big takeaway is that by paying attention to these parameters, especially the ones you can easily track yourself, like resting heart rate, activity levels, maybe even grip strength with a simple device, you gain really invaluable insight into your own biological aging process.
It's like getting personalized feedback.
Exactly. It does two key things. First, it helps confirm if the health habits you're putting effort into are actually working on a deeper level. Are they moving the needle biologically? And second, seeing those numbers improve or even just hold steady against chronological aging can be incredibly motivating. It gives you tangible proof, tangible rewards for your dedication. It helps you understand not just if you're aging, but how fast and maybe where you could focus more effort.
That's really empowering.
It really is. And perhaps as a final thought to leave you with, something that kind of transcends all these physical measurements, there's compelling research showing that people who maintain a clear purpose in life, a sense of meaning, they tend to live longer. And this finding holds true across incredibly diverse situations, from studies looking at survivors of extreme hardship like concentration camps, all the way to the famously long-lived populations in places like Okinawa.
Purpose. Like a reason to get up in the morning.
Yeah. Exactly. So while it's fantastic to measure your RHR, track your steps, build your strength, and you absolutely should, I'd encourage you to also reflect on that deeper motivating force. What's your purpose? Because it seems the why we live might be just as crucial for longevity as the how we live.